We are joined today by Collin Ellis from ThreatLocker. He comes from Florida, where he is a senior solutions engineer. He works with managed security and service providers, like USI Tech, to make them safer, more secure, and more efficient. And I'm very excited to have him today. So, without further ado, Collin Ellis.
And no, thank you for having me. Thank you guys for taking the time this morning. And I promise this is the only still image you'll see. No PowerPoints. It's too early for that. But I do recognize some faces after working with the guys, dealing with small issues and things that have popped up. But yeah, if you're available afterwards, I'm free to talk if you have any extra questions. But we'll dive into the dark web today. And the main goal of this presentation, I want to stress, it's not to fearmonger in any way, but it's to provide a better explanation as to why we do what we do, why the security conversations you guys have had have popped up, how they've gotten a little bit more difficult each year as time has gone on. So we're going to explain what's really going on out there. And we're going to start with what's on screen, just a better understanding of the internet itself. So we're always connected, and what you guys are really used to is the very top layer of this iceberg we call the internet, the clearnet, right? It is everything you're used to. You think of Google, Yahoo, AOL. A nice way to define it is anything a search engine has indexed. So if you go on any one of those search engines, you type anything in, that's the clearnet itself. The most important part of the internet, though, is the deep web, the layer in the middle. That is where you guys come in. This is your data, your information, anything that runs the business, your staff, all their information, anything proprietary, any PII that comes across your desk. That is what we want to protect 100% of the time. And then you have the dark web at the very bottom. So I always like to say the dark web isn't a bad thing at all. It was actually invented by the US Navy for secure communications. So the main point of it is on the very far right, being anonymous. You have this ability to use it day in, day out. Again, it's not illegal at all. I always like to draw the line in the sand there. Think of it this way. What if you could go to Facebook without getting ads, being tracked? Or whatever you're doing on your computer wasn't being watched by some third party. That's what the deep web, the dark web now becomes. But like anything, too much of a good thing can lead to something bad. And it's a double-edged sword. Just like software, your computers, your phones, it's going to be used in a bad way. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the very first thing I want to introduce with this is that you can't access it with a normal computer, normal browser. You need something a little bit different. And we're using an operating system actually called Tails. So I'm not sure if you guys can see this. This is a Windows Surface. So it's a Windows computer. But I have this OS running on this little USB. So I want you guys to think back 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We've gone from having small MP3 players that you could just plug in when we all used to pirate music back in the day. And time has just evolved. That little drive can run just about anything. Really powerful. And when I do these type of trainings, I'll stress, not connected to the network here. We don't want that at all. It's actually a hotspot, just to be safe. But I'm never going to connect to the dark web on an actual machine. They can poke from the other side, and you're going to get an understanding of why. But the real purpose here to begin with is to explain why, again, your adversaries, who's looking to attack the business, attack you guys, your family, and answer some questions that you've probably had over the past couple of years. So we're going to talk about hackers and how you can legitimately hire them. And you're going to notice on screen, this is what we call the hidden wiki. The hardest thing about the dark web is knowing where to go, because everything changes pretty frequently. And we're going to start with the very first listing, dark web hackers for hire. So normally these are loaded up, but I just had to reset the presentation because I plugged the USB out accidentally, so bear with me. But we're going to start with what you see on screen. So generally speaking, when I'm doing this presentation, I'm looking at USI Tech, and I want you guys to understand the value that they bring. You guys get it, you work with them, you have really good relationships, but they're fighting an actual fight. So think of the senior engineers, you know, that works here. Think of the more junior engineers that might be a little bit newer. That same dynamic between the technical staff. The opposition works in the exact same way. But to clarify that, we have a hacking group. Vladimir as a senior engineer and George, a junior. They work in pairs. So introducing you to Vladimir, he's gonna give you a nice breakdown of some technical skills. He's a programmer, he's really good. Just working with the team since 2020, I know at least 3 people here that can program in the same way. The skill set is just about the same. It's how that skill set is being used. So if you take a look at some of the services, when I speak on the value that the USI Tech team brings, just take a look at this. If you wanted to tap into someone's phone, it's about $700. And the target can be just about anybody. So you guys are all business owners, you have worked really hard for your position, your roles, and where you stand as of today. But separate yourself, think of yourself as just a citizen. Just growing up in life, you've played sports, I'm sure you guys are competitive, you're leaders in that way. So you've made friends and you've made some frenemies along the way. So think about one person right now that comes to mind that probably doesn't like you the most, right this very second. Not the business, nothing to do with the business itself. They could target you just like that. It's just hiring somebody to get a job done. But we're gonna go a little bit deeper, and this is the one that always interests me. When you think of work, you think of how the team supports you guys for 30 days, full service, 8 hours a day. That's $9,500. And if they're not targeting your business, they could target you as an individual. So I think of myself as the most security-driven person in my family, just because of my role and what I do day in, day out. But the weakest link to that is actually the rest of my family members, my direct friends. And I'll explain exactly why that's relevant, but if someone could be outsourced for 30 days and you're their only target, it becomes a much easier job kind of moving forward. And then we're gonna dig in a little bit more. So we'll scroll down, and this is the senior engineer, by the way, just to put things into perspective. We're gonna introduce you to George. George, not as good as Vladimir, but still really technical, and you get a little bit more information there. But I know you guys are chuckling reading the first line, but it could be that simple. So a few of you here have ThreatLocker installed, and you'll get the pop-ups, you'll get denies. Something might even be blocked silently, and it might cause a little bit of pain. But this is the reason why. So working with a lot of you, I know you have software that requires the most privileged access, the most elevated rights for it to run legitimately on your computer. That sole piece of software is like the biggest hole we're trying to immediately fill. If that tool can run with admin rights, that means me, anyone here, can just use your own software and do something like this. Think about it this way. If you all have a Windows computer, you all have Chrome, Firefox, a browser, Office, and I can legitimately use any one of those tools to drop a file like that on your computer without you knowing. And I'll give you an example here later on, but this is it. So when you think of what managed service providers, what this organization here deals with on a day-to-day, these attacks are constant. A lot of them are driven by individuals like this, but I want to set a better frame of reference. They're not constantly at their computer trying to target you directly. They've already built the software to do that, and it's just running autonomously, constantly, every day. So this is where the good fight actually starts. So if I'm a person that's not technical, I can just go outsource it. And this listing is pretty friendly. We're gonna go back to one a little bit funnier. So just to save some time here, we'll do hacker. And this guy has a better sense of humor. And you're gonna notice it pretty quickly. So a lot of times when you think about hackers, you immediately think they're in some Eastern European country. That, for the most part, could be true. But there's plenty of them in the United States, I should say. In this hemisphere. South America, North America, it could be anyone, to be honest. But I'm just gonna zoom in so you guys can read in on screen. And this is where we introduce the real nerds. So attackers like this, they're financially driven, without a doubt. They want to make money. But they're so technical, they get so much pleasure out of going up against an organization like USI Tech and actually fighting against them. They want the ability to say, I've owned you and your organization, and you can't do anything about it. So they get that incentive. Again, they're looking for money, but there's a big push here just to say, I'm better than you. So if you look at the skills, I could look at maybe 3 employees here, and I know they can do the same thing. You see, they can build websites, PHP, SQL, and so on. They can code. They can run with exploits. And everyone here can do that. It's just the ethos. So you have the white hats, the black hats, the people in between, they're gray, apparently. And that's the nature of what we deal with. So between both listings, something that you guys will notice is that social engineering becomes a big topic. You guys go through security awareness training, and I'll be honest, when you do that type of stuff, you don't get the immediate value from it. But you're gonna see why it becomes really important in just a second. So going through his listings here, a little bit cheaper than Vladimir and George, but services are still there. And you get the same things. They either want to DDoS your organization, which is a distributed denial of service. Your websites, just think about that. What if someone couldn't get to your website today? A login portal. They're just gonna bombard it with so much traffic, it's unusable. And it's really simple for them to get it done. And then again, full service. They give you those options. So this is when you're outsourcing. What if you're a little bit more technical? You could think of the technical people you have on staff, people in your family that's a little bit more technical. They know their way around computers. It could be this simple. So we're gonna pick on our friends in the north, just a little bit. And you know what? I just want to give you guys a quick view of the other portion of the dark web. I know you all use Amazon without a question. You've all been to a marketplace. So I'm going to show you one example of that. An Amazon on the dark web. Everything you think, you can buy just about anything. The one we're going to pick on though is We the North. And as of today, it is the most active dark web marketplace in the world. And they're about an hour away, if I'm remembering right.
How easy is it for people to get to these places?
It's really simple.
Really?
It's as simple as, if you didn't want to be as secure as what I'm doing right now, you could run Tor on your computer and you're right there. Maybe 10 clicks, if I had to count them. So if you take a look at the marketplace now, just look at the categories on the left-hand side. And I actually forgot to give you the fair warning. There will be some interesting things that pop up, but this is the reality of it, right? So on the left-hand side, drugs, guns, counterfeit things, and you'll notice we can legitimately just buy software, malware, botnets. So if I'm a little bit more technical now, a script kiddie, I like to call it, you can just go buy these malicious things. So we're gonna dig into some listings, and I'm gonna pick on WhatsApp first. So quick show of hands, if you have this thing installed on your phone. You have family members that use WhatsApp, really, really big communication medium. So in 2018, 2020, 2021, Meta, WhatsApp, even before it was purchased, they were owned. All that information your files, the things that you share, your phone numbers are just out there. So ultimately, after an attack takes place, we end up seeing a cycle. It will be maybe for 2 to 3 years you're being bombarded by constant nonsense, weird messages, smishing, weird emails, weird messages on WhatsApp. It'll stop for a little while and then it picks back up again. And I'm gonna explain exactly why. But for me, it cost $9.45 Canadian. That's probably what, $5?
Not quite.
Right. And it's as simple as that. You have it, and the information will be there. You don't need to go hunt for anything else. But like any marketplace, your vendors get graded, and the things get reviewed. We're gonna keep going. There's this LinkedIn one, we're gonna skip that for a second. But one of my favorite exploits here is this thing called ZooSpot. How to steal your login credentials. I know the team here has told you guys, maybe time and time again, never save a password to your browser. And the reason why, it just lives on the computer. It's in plain text. There's nothing protecting it. The moment you hit that save button, something like this can just scrape it without you ever knowing. We're gonna go a little bit further though, and introduce one more. We'll go back to the LinkedIn one. So from a business perspective, you guys all use LinkedIn. It's relevant. You might not be on it day in, day out, but every bit of information that's out there on LinkedIn, that's in the public eye, that's where a lot of this starts. If I wanted to target any one of you, I'm not going directly to your email or anything like that. The reconnaissance phase starts here. I want to know your staff, your VP, anyone that is related to the business at all. Gives me an idea of who I need to pretend to be. That's where the social engineering discussion, it won't stop, but we get to build on it. So now this very last one, this is going to be the big picture for you guys. This is a ransomware group called Clop Ransomware. So just telling this story, again, the adversaries, the attackers could be big ransomware organizations, a small 2-man team, or maybe just one person that just doesn't like you that much. But Clop here, I pick on them because they pick on companies in Canada, the United States, and in the UK specifically. The reason? You'll get to see here. So this presentation, this training that we're doing right now, this was created because in 2018, I got an alert saying that my USF, I attended the University of South Florida, based in Tampa, that my email was on the dark web. I was interested, so dug a little bit, and it turned out the USF Health Administration had gotten compromised. So what that meant for me, first name, last name, social, mom's maiden name, everything about me was just there. I went to the doctor, they knew it, no questions. So after that, USF kind of did their due diligence and got things cleaned up, but it led me to this screen right here. So you'll notice it says archive 1, 2, and all the way to 9. So just on a scroll, I just want you to look. I'll show you some of the companies here, but these are all the organizations that were compromised in 2018. And Miami EDU, I'm based in Tampa, Florida. I know a lot of people that attended this school, friends, family members. So what does a compromise actually look like? The reason why we put in the types of controls you're running into, it's to avoid something like this. So if an exploit happens, you know what? I'll actually start here. We know that schools are for-profit. You knew that to begin with. You definitely know it now. To prove that they did the deed, you could just download the files. And I want to stress, unlike the We the North Marketplace, there's no paywall here. I could just take the data. We're going to dig a little bit deeper though. See, I can just save it. And to prove that the information is real, it's valid, they'll give you breakdowns. We're going to start at the bottom though and work our way up. And I'll just zoom in a little bit. And we have this student here. So, mother, First name, last name, maiden name, social, date of birth, everything I need to immediately commit fraud, to be honest. So when we run these numbers, Florida and New York, not the entire state of New York, but New York, that little spot that we don't like so much down there. biggest locations for fraud. Carding, all these things happen left and right. And it becomes really simple to get it going. But what if you're Vladimir or George or that one Eastern European guy and you want to target someone? I already have enough information about you for free. The funny thing is, chances are everyone in this room, you've been a part of an organization that's been compromised. I'm gonna give you a quick example of myself. So I have a Home Depot credit card. Jeez.
Yep.
T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. And the list just keeps going. So when you think about it, the entire United States had to deal with Experian being compromised a few years ago. What does that actually mean? Well, I'll give you guys a couple answers. For me, after it was all said and done, I had to freeze my credit for 2 years. Just constant things being taken out in my name. I'm based in Tampa, California. A car note was about to just be written right off. Went through this thing with the IRS. The IRS said, under your circumstances, you can change your Social Security. But it's extreme. You have to have proof that it's being misused, and even proof that it's up here, which I did. So if I didn't change it at all, in maybe the next 2 years it will just start up again. And this is how this thing goes full circle. So when you go to like a marketplace, and like We the North, you could just buy PII. Forget trying to steal it, they just have it packaged, just ready to go. So I want to take you guys back to 2019. Right after the Obama administration left office, there was this bill that was repealed. And this bill said, ISPs are not allowed to sell your information, and they're selling it as of today. What they can't do though is say, this profile that we create is David specifically. They can't say that, but they can tell the buyer that if you want to sell to David, this is a general profile of the area that David is in. So the hackers in this way could legitimately buy information or just grab it from something like Clop for free. And the cycle continues. So Clop ransomware, this group, the FBI, CIA, and South Korea had a joint operation to take them out. And they arrested like 30 people. And this is back in 2020. 7 days later, the site is back up. So once it's out there, I'll be honest, anything that's up here has been copied 1,000,000 times. But think of what this does to insurance, compliance. Lawsuits become really, really straightforward because the data's there. We're gonna pick on a couple more things though, and we're gonna go to...
Hey Collin, before you leave Clop, can you pull up the Jones Day law firm dump? You showed it in one of the conferences I was at, where you can see the sample files show passports.
Passports, yep.
Licenses.
So New York, the New York State Bar. Oh man.
Yeah, was it New York State Bar?
Yeah. So I think, which one was it? Archive 5. Yeah, there's just so many now. Bear with me. We'll find this thing together.
And just a quick thing while he's looking for it, in the folder, you have 2 sheets. One is something you just take back to the office with you, and kind of just go through it to make sure you have all the right stuff and that your environment is safe. And the second thing is we do have a survey in it. Obviously, you don't have to write your name on it, it is anonymous. Just to let us know how this presentation went and how what you'd like to see the next one, because these do happen every 3rd Thursday of the month.
So when Archive 3, which we're on, again, it goes incrementally in years. So this is 2021 at this point. And if these organizations, mind you, are still up here on this wall of shame, that means one thing hasn't happened and the organization hasn't done what they're supposed to do to get them taken down. And Clop is the type of ransomware group where they're very direct, they're outspoken. If the news media say anything, they're very quick to correct and kind of set the record straight. But they're a little interesting because they're so technical, they're proving the point, yes, we owned you, and these same group of people will guide their organization into properly securing their environment after the fact, which is so bizarre. But they do it. But you see this little note here, right? Or a small fee. So when they compromised the bar, the type of access they had, they could actually see the engineers through cameras. So they were watching the engineers looking at the README files after the ransomware execute and just ignore it. But the data they got, which is terabytes of data, and you'll see this list is significantly longer than the first one. We're going down all the way to about 200, and there's 2 sections of this. But to show you some of the data now, and again, they prove this point, wow, the scroll is even longer. So this is something David and I were discussing yesterday. If they have the ability to update this information, they are still there. So I would take the assumption that Clop still has access to the New York City bar. You know, anyone attempting to be a lawyer might want to pass that on. So if we scroll down, and we're just going to go straight to it, it can be as simple as that. They give you the legitimate scans. One of the reasons why something like this is important, right? When you're hiring people, someone signs a check to pay you, and there's a digital copy of it. That information is critical. You should not have that in your documents, downloads, desktop, any of those
Even if it says void?
Yeah, because the account information is still there.
Gotcha.
And it's just a scan now. So I have enough information to pretend to be anyone. And then to just give you a better example, we're going to go back to this hidden wiki. And if I wanted to actually buy a passport, I want you guys to know you're just clicks away. So if I have the information, the legitimate stuff, I know everything about the person, it's as simple as this. I can go straight to the hidden wiki and just search passport. And we'd be there. In the past maybe 6 months, it's funny, Irish passports are really sought after. You could kind of think of why. They're not a part of they did the whole Brexit thing, so they're siloed, but they have the freedom to travel anywhere. And it becomes that simple. Maybe 5 clicks to get it all done. So yeah, just taking a look. Anyone that's, I would assume, ever been trialed, anyone going through testing, going through the education, their data is just out there. So last little bit before I turn it over to the team, I'll actually show you guys here. I have a company phone, which is a Verizon phone, and my personal, which is T-Mobile. I always like to explain the T-Mobile. I've been a T-Mobile customer since I was maybe 14. Same number the entire time. So I'm grandfathered into some amazing plans, by the way. But both companies were compromised in the past year, not 2 years, past 365 days. You guys probably got a random message saying, your SIM card information may have been stolen. What does that mean for you guys? Well, think about the weirdest text message you've gotten in the past maybe 2 months. Someone pretending to be you, or you might get that random phone call you pick up and they said, you just called me. No, I didn't. It's just there. They have all that data. So pretending to be you could be really simple. When you're doing 2-factor, this is one of my favorite things. So for a second, if you have ThreatLocker installed, I want to talk about MFA. Not us, but just multi-factor authentication. The reason why you log into 365, you get that 2-factor code, you should not be getting a text message, ever. Ever. Never use that. Your personal banking, social media profiles and things like that, never choose SMS. It is the most unsecure thing, period.
Wow.
To put it into perspective, I could stand right outside with an antenna and a little USB and actually capture that, because it just floats through the air. That's why iMessage is useful. You go Google to Android, no. That communication right there is public for anyone who wants to see it, to see it. It's literally just something going straight through the air, unencrypted. So this is how it all comes together. Those weird things that pop up, there's a reason for it. You think about your spam, all the junk that's in there, all the targeted emails you get, it's not by chance. There's a profile of one of you guys out there somewhere, someone related to you, and this is what makes the difference. So if you leave with anything today, most important thing for me is that some of the business practices that you've implemented keep the organization secure. You've got to take that home. And it's not just for you, it's for the weakest link that you could think of right now. And if you have kids, I'm sorry, it's them immediately. The Fortnite gamers, the gamers in general, it's just so easy. And all it takes is one click, just one legitimate.